On his 12th birthday, when most children are still blowing out candles with nothing but weekend plans on their minds, Prince George will quietly receive a slim, velvet-bound folder carried by a palace equerry who will address him not as Your Royal Highness but, for the very first time, as the future sovereign. Inside that folder await 3 documents: a personal note from King Charles written in steady fountain pen strokes, a 2-page briefing that explains why aviation rules will soon require George to fly without his father or sister, and a color-coded study schedule that will tether his teenage years to lessons on Westminster procedure, Commonwealth geopolitics, crisis messaging and, strikingly, mindfulness. The note from the king is said to begin with a sentence that brought tears even to the eyes of seasoned aides when they proofread it. "My dear grandson, there is a crown in your future, but the weight you will feel before you ever touch it is the true test of character." Those 17 words mark the real start of Prince George's apprenticeship, an apprenticeship that William and Catherine have tried to choreograph with surgical precision ever since their firstborn gasped his first breath on a humid July afternoon in 2013. For the outside world, George has so far been the grinning boy in balcony photographs, the heir who wobbled between excitement and shyness during his grandfather's coronation, the big brother caught scolding little Louis when Jubilee antics threatened public decorum, and the keen young football fan who leaps from his seat when Aston Villa scores. Yet behind the neo-Georgian facade of Adelaide Cottage, a very different rhythm has been ticking. There are sand timers on the mantelpiece, real ones, blown from thick Windsor glass, that George has learned to flip each term. They measure the intervals to 3 immovable milestones. The first timer empties next summer when, under long-standing protocol, he may no longer share commercial flights with William or Charlotte. The second drains in September 2026, the month he swaps day school safety for boarding school crucible and, with it, loses the geographical cocoon that has let him vanish after lessons behind home park trees. The third timer stretches into the hazy future, toward the day he will take an accession oath in St. James's Palace, but even that sand trickles visibly whenever a news alert reminds him that sovereigns are mortal and calendars can accelerate. Each time George inverts one of those timers, William repeats the same line his grandmother Queen Elizabeth once used for him: "Time itself is your sternest mentor, see each grain, learn its lesson." The decision to reveal the full scale of destiny was never a spur-of-the-moment parental brainstorm. William, scarred by the clumsy way he learned about his own fate, an overheard joke from a valet that set off years of confused whispers, spent months drafting a plan with Catherine, Lamrook headmaster Jonathan Perry, a child psychologist from Great Ormond Street, and 2 officials from the Lord Chamberlain's office. They agreed that George's 7th summer was the point where curiosity would outgrow half-answers, yet innocence still cushioned shock. The setting was a Saturday picnic on the broad lawn of Anmer Hall. Catherine baked elderflower cakes, Charlotte guarded the secret storyboard William had sketched on watercolored card, Louis chased butterflies, and George, unsuspecting, built a Lego fort under a cedar. When lunch ended, William unfurled those cards in sequence, first a lion cub exploring a woodland pride, then the cub growing into guardian of every animal path, finally an image of an older lion walking alone at dawn, and with each picture explained how service sometimes means standing where no one else can. Observers at a discreet distance say George listened, asked if the lion still played football, and whether the crown he'd wear was heavy. William answered that the crown mattered less than the voice beneath it, and Catherine added that any weight feels lighter when one's back is strengthened by kindness. The boy absorbed, nodded, resumed collecting Lego pieces. That night he slept poorly, rose before sunrise, and requested a second conversation. Thus began the private tutorials the palace labels Lionheart sessions, an echo of Richard I chosen to sound inspiring without implying entitlement. Those sessions now occupy 2 discrete slots each week. One tutor handles historical context, blending Norman succession crises with modern constitutional facts. Another, a former RAF wing commander, introduces logistics: why heirs rehearse safehouse routes, why personal security can never be entirely delegated, how empathy in a microphone becomes national glue when sirens wail. George has already practiced reading a 90-second emergency broadcast into a lens while a countdown clock flashes red. He has also tried on augmented reality goggles that overlay coronation choreography inside a digital Westminster Abbey, guiding him from the west door to the Stone of Destiny. Yet William and Catherine insist the lessons remain balanced with genuine childhood. George cycles muddy tracks in Windsor Great Park, pores over match attacks cards with Louis, and still loses himself in art homework where kings and queens are drawn as cartoon knights. Meanwhile, the most heated parental debate plays out beyond their son's earshot. Where should he board? William leans toward Eton's vaulted arches across the Thames, tradition, continuity, networks that can steady a young sovereign in waiting. Catherine counters with Marlborough, her alma mater renowned for pastoral care and marginally lighter press attention. Both schools discreetly propose new well-being programs tailored for a future monarch, and both have prepared dormitory wings that could double as secure zones. Admissions deadlines loom. Whichever choice they sign will be interpreted worldwide as a statement about modernizing monarchy versus clinging to heritage. In private, William has confessed that optics weigh heavily, but safety and George's happiness will tip the scale. None of that postpones the airline rule. From 12 onward, the Civil Aviation Authority's risk matrix forbids two direct heirs traveling together except with swift, revocable permission from the sovereign. To soften the psychological blow, the King has ordered a rehearsal flight this autumn. George will board a Greytail RAF envoy at Northolt, buckle beside an equerry and 2 counter-surveillance officers, and fly 42 minutes to Balmoral while his parents watch from the tarmac. A medic will stand by, though the greater danger may be anxiety, not altitude. George must land, greet his grandparents, refuel on Irn-Bru and shortbread, then fly back the same afternoon. Courtiers hope the drill installs confidence. Catherine privately dreads the moment engines spool. Beyond protocol and schooling, there is the digital gauntlet. A 6-member moderation unit in St. James's Palace scans every social media mention of George, flagging deepfakes, geotagged images, and cyberbullying before algorithms propel them. Starting next term, close friends will sign confidentiality agreements unprecedented for 12-year-olds but deemed essential now that AI can reconstruct a palace interior from a stray selfie. Even so, aides concede that adolescence will be the real test. Group chats, weekend parties, a single unguarded remark about politics could ricochet across 500,000 screens within minutes. Inside the King's study at Buckingham Palace sits the linen box, a travel-worn chest that contains Charles's boyhood diaries, William's first RAF wings, and after next week, George's initial Lionheart worksheets. The King intends to present the box after birthday supper. He believes symbolism matters. Framed within past duty, future duty feels less like exile and more like heritage. George, according to those who know him, loves tangible relics. He may spend hours comparing his grandfather's scrawled notes on the Falklands crisis to his father's entries about Grenfell Tower. That intergenerational thread, family courtiers hope, will weave resilience into the boy's coming years. Observers sometimes ask how much of this is necessary in an age when many question monarchy's role at all. Palace strategists answer with polling data showing the Crown still commands majority support among over 50s but faces skepticism from younger Britons. Their conclusion is stark: if George reaches adulthood without the ability to project sincerity, competence, and relevance, the institution will slide from mild uncertain support to active indifference. Everything from VR coronation rehearsals to mindfulness coaching aims at preparing a 21st-century monarch who can bridge that gap, a sovereign who understands online culture, champions causes with measurable impact, yet still embodies the ceremonial continuity older generations cherish. Privately, William once remarked to a friend that he wants his son to inherit a job worth loving, not a sentence to serve. That means ensuring George witnesses genuine service, not just gilded pageantry. It explains why, in 2 summers' time, George will accompany his parents on a microtour of Prince Edward Island, meeting Indigenous youth leaders and joining shoreline cleanup crews rather than only waving from grand stages. It is also why the boys' Lionheart curriculum now includes monthly volunteer hours at a local children's hospice under a pseudonym. Staff know who he is, but patients do not, allowing empathy to grow unforced. The birthday dossier, then, is less revelation than consolidation. It ties stray threads: aviation independence, school decision, early public duties into a single vision of what the next decade demands. It clarifies dangers but also feeds motivation. The King's closing sentence reportedly reads, "Carry our islands in your heart and they will carry you on the hardest days." When the velvet folder closes, when cakes are eaten and fireworks over Frogmore fade, George will still be 12, still prefer FIFA to parliamentary precedent, but a hinge will have clicked. From that evening forward, every outing, every friendship, Every stumble will be measured by press, by public, by digital permanence against the shadow of an eventual scepter. The road ahead winds through exams, first crushes, Commonwealth tours, social media storms, and, someday, a reverent hush in Westminster Abbey. William and Catherine have built what they hope is a runway smooth enough and wide enough for a safe takeoff. Whether the world will allow their son a turbulence-free ascent is a question only time, and the boy's own courage, can answer.